Last presidential debate between candidates Pedro Castillo and Keiko Fujimori concludes ahead of June the 6th presidential elections in Peru. West African leaders meet in Ghana to discuss Mali's second coup. Israel's Prime Minister meets Egyptian intelligence chief in hopes of brokering a permanent ceasefire with Palestine. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. And now we begin with the news. The second round of presidential elections in Peru is nearing. The contenders in the runoff, Pedro Castillo and Keiko Fujimori, the daughter of former right-wing dictator Alberto Fujimori, face each other in the last television debate before the vote this coming Sunday. The debate took place at the San Agustín National University in the southern city of Arequipa. Opinion polls are giving a slight advantage to Castillo, a leftist teacher running on an anti-neoliberal platform supported by the Free Peru Party and an array of left-wing parties and social movements. Fujimori, in turn, is the candidate of Peru's big business and financial institutions. Like its neighboring countries, Peru saw in November last year a national wave of protests demanding a constitutional assembly. Peru's current constitution was imposed by Fujimori's father in 1993. Colombian President Iván Duque has ordered a 25% increase in the military's manpower in the city of Popayán to disperse protesters of the national strike.
We have opened the way to fully implement this military assistance in the city of Popayán and in the department of Cauca. We have specified the following. For the city of Popayán, there will be a 25% increase in the army's manpower to accompany the military assistance. We are going to accompany strategic supply processes in different parts of the department of Cauca, and together with the governor's office, the mayor's office, the interior ministry, and of course, the accompaniment of the authorities, we also hope to accelerate the process of unblocking the roads.
Still in Colombia, the mayor of Cali, Jorge Iván Ospina, said that on May 28th, the day Colombia marked a full month of nationwide anti-government protest, the prosecutor's office reported 13 homicides.
May 20th, 2021 is a tragic day, a painful day, and a day that has meant death in our territory and our land. However, we still cannot determine if all the deaths we have had on May 28th are connected and integrally linked to the protests. It is important to note that the prosecutor's office reports 13 homicides on May 28th.
Meanwhile, protesters have vowed to carry on with the national strike despite violent repression from security forces.
We are not going to tire of the national strike because we are continuing in the fight, because here I am for my students, for a better future for them and for my daughter. No more. We are not invisible to the state.
We want to work with dignity. We want guarantees, that the government gives guarantees to us, to the youth.
Hundreds of Colombians and Spanish supporters have marched in the streets of Madrid in support of Colombia's national strike. Protesters were seen carrying large banners that read SOS Colombia and support the national strike while waving Colombian flags. The national strike began in Colombia on April 28th, triggered by a proposed but now withdrawn tax reform bill by President Iván Duque. The month of protest has left at least 59 people dead. According to the Defense Ministry, more than 2,300 civilians and uniformed personnel have been injured.
We are also demanding the Spanish government evaluates its free trade agreements with Colombia, which are sustained under human rights clauses, which pretend that democracy exists in Colombia, when evidently it's a dictatorship and there is a genocide, which makes it seem like in Colombia there is a civil war, with people defending themselves with makeshift shields.
And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. West African leaders have met in Ghana to discuss the instability in Mali. The meeting comes in response to Mali's second coup in 9 months. The president of Nigeria, Ivory Coast, and Burkina Faso were among those who attended the summit. Mali's coup leader and newly appointed head of transitional government, Colonel Assimi Goïta, also attended the meeting. The West African country has been under a transitional government for 18 months, following a coup d'etat of August 2020. But soldiers earlier this week forced both the transitional president and prime minister to resign, and Goïta took over.
Remaining resolute in supporting the people of Ghana, of Mali, to find a peaceful solution and restore democracy and stability in the country. In this respect, we must critically examine the dynamics of the current situation and make informed decisions. I'm thus using this opportunity to reiterate, on behalf of ECOWAS, our continued commitment to the peaceful transition in Mali, with a basic goal of restoring democratic government and working for the stability of Mali and of our region.
On Monday, South Africa will return to a stricter lockdown to curb a sharp rise in COVID-19 cases. President Cyril Ramaphosa said that the country has recorded a 31% rise in COVID-19 cases in the past 7 days. Ramaphosa said that from Monday, the nighttime curfew will be extended by an hour to start at 11 p.m. until 4 a.m. A maximum of 100 people will be allowed at indoor social gatherings and no more than 250 at outdoors gathering. South Africa was one of the most affected countries by the COVID-19 in Africa early in the pandemic, recording 1.6 million confirmed cases and more than 56,000 deaths.
In daily cases is following the same trajectory or direction as it did at the start of the previous 2 waves. We've seen in other countries the tragic consequences of allowing the virus to spread unchecked. The Ministerial Advisory Committee on COVID-19 has therefore recommended that the country urgently implement further restrictions to limit the increase in infections.
And residents from DR Congo's Goma district have started to return to their homes following last week's volcano eruption. Many of the returning residents found their houses destroyed or heavily damaged. At least 32 people have died as a result of the eruption, including 3 children, while 40 people have been reported as missing. About 14,000 people fled Goma to nearby Rwanda after the eruption.
I have just arrived at my home in the Bujuvu district. Unfortunately, when I arrived, I saw fissures everywhere that were caused by the tremors. Everywhere in the house, the cement has been destroyed. Look how it got destroyed. It's because of the volcano. And even on the other side, look.
And the DR Congo president, Felix Tshisekedi, has said that the situation is under control following Mount Nyiragongo's eruption.
Then there's the problem of the return of these displaced people. And for me, this is the most delicate issue because the day they return, some will find themselves without a home, some will be without food, some will be sick. So that too needs to be anticipated. I want to go and see for myself how our compatriots are being looked after, but also to give them comfort and support and to tell them that the war of Congo is with them. I begin by expressing my compassion and solidarity with the people of Goma. These compatriots from the East have constantly been victims of many abuses, sometimes by armed groups and now even by nature herself.
And Ethiopia has staged a massive rally in Addis Ababa to rail against the United States imposing sanctions over the conflict in the Tigray region. Demonstrators packed a stadium in the capital for the pro-government rally, chanting against U.S. sanctions and waving posters accusing foreign powers of interfering in Ethiopia's sovereignty. The rally comes after the U.S. President Joe Biden condemned the war in Tigray, and his administration imposed restrictions on visas and assistance over the 6-month conflict. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government denounced the U.S. sanctions as a resolve to meddle in our internal affairs. The Tigray conflict erupted in November when Prime Minister Ahmed, the winner of the 2019 Nobel Peace Prize, sent troops to confront the leaders of the Tigray's ruling party, accusing them of attacks on federal army camps.
America and its associates, without understanding the ways of the TPLF forces and its disastrous acts, they are interfering in our domestic affairs by imposing travel sanctions and prerequisites which can by no means be accepted. They should stop and think thoughtfully about this issue to correct it.
I came here today to oppose the idea of foreign countries trying to interfere in our domestic affairs and babysit us. We are a sovereign country. As a sovereign country, our people and our government decide for our country.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Israeli Foreign Minister Gabi Ashkenazi has visited Egypt to discuss establishing a permanent ceasefire between his country and Palestine. Ashkenazi met his Egyptian counterpart Sameh Shoukry in the capital Cairo. The trip, which is the first formal visit of an Israeli foreign minister in 13 years, is aimed at fostering a ceasefire with Palestine-Hamas group. The meeting aims at creating a mechanism for providing humanitarian aid and reconstruction of Gaza, following 11 days of Israel violent bombardments. Egypt played a vital role in negotiating a ceasefire earlier this month between Israel and Gaza's Palestinian leaders. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a meeting with Egyptian intelligence chief Abbas Kamel in Jerusalem to discuss strengthening cooperation between their two countries. The meeting marked a turning point in Israel and Palestine conflict and are expected to strengthen a ceasefire between both nations. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi designated Kamel and his delegation to hold a series of meetings with Israeli authorities to ensure a permanent ceasefire is reached. Egypt has also pledged $500 million to help in the reconstruction of Palestine's densely populated areas, including Gaza City, which were destroyed by Israeli airstrikes. Meanwhile, in Palestine, residents whose houses were destroyed by Israeli missiles have called for urgent help to return to normal life. Despite help pledged by the United Nations and other countries, most Palestinians still remain homeless and lack the basic necessities. Israel's bombardment of the Gaza Strip has killed at least 213 Palestinians, including 61 children and 36 women. According to the UN, at least 58,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been internally displaced, with many of them cramped in makeshift shelters.
One day we had a house, and the next day we had nothing. Our house was shelled by the occupation. 2 reconnaissance strikes hit the house without warning, and we escaped immediately. We went to a school. Then we came back home, but there was nothing left in the house. I don't have shelter anymore. I'm homeless. At the moment, I'm living on the street, and the children are living in the school. We don't have shelter anymore.
At the moment, I don't want anything from this world except to live a normal life with my family, to have inner peace, security, and to live according to human rights, safe and sound. God willing, this will be the case.
Our house was hit by the Zionist occupation's warplanes. It is completely destroyed. Now we have come here. We fled to the school for shelter, and now we are living here waiting for help or compensation for the rent we pay.
Cyprus voters have headed to the polls for parliamentary elections amid a corruption scandal. Nearly 660 candidates are running for 56 seats in parliament. The election is limited to government-held areas, excluding the northern third of the island, where a breakaway Turkish Cypriot state holds sway. Ultra-nationalists looking to exploit the anti-establishment mood have also played on concerns over migration, another issue for the European Union's member state. The present administration has faced criticism for a lucrative cash for passport scheme. It had to abandon amid allegations of corruption in November 2020.
Experienced much corruption during the last 10-15 years in Cyprus. And it's good to see that every time we see new people and younger people in the parliament, rather than seeing that same people are voted and elected every time.
New Zealand authorities have declared a state of emergency in the province of Canterbury as the region was pounded by heavy rain. The extreme weather have forced thousands of people to abandon their homes. Meanwhile, Acting Emergency Management Minister Chris Fafoy said about 3,000 homes were at risk, and the army had been mobilized to assist with evacuations if necessary. The New Zealand Meteorological Service has issued a red warning for the area, with up to 300 millimeters of rain expected to fall in inland areas. In coastal Christchurch, the main city of Canterbury, forecasters expected about 100 millimeters to fall, well above the monthly total average for May. A ferry in eastern Indonesia has caught fire with nearly 200 people on board. The incident forced passengers and crew to jump into the sea, but causing no casualties. The fire broke out 15 minutes after the vessel departed Ternate, the provincial capital of North Maluku, at around 7 a.m. local time. The Sea Transportation Authorities said all 181 passengers, including 22 children and 14 crew members, were rescued and safely evacuated to a nearby island. Authorities are still investigating the cause of the incident.
Passengers are recorded in the manifest and 14 crew on board. Until now, the Joint Search and Rescue Team is still listing the passengers who have been rescued.
And Japan is facing growing calls to cancel the Tokyo Summer Olympics, scheduled to open on July 23rd, with concerns over the COVID-19 pandemic. An online petition calling for the cancellation of the Tokyo Olympics has received over 400,000 signatures in a few weeks. Governors want to contain the spread of the new variants and ease the medical crisis in their cities. But there is criticism that Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga is making the Olympics his priority. Amid pressure from district governments, Suga on Friday announced a 3-week extension of the COVID-19 state of emergency in Tokyo, Osaka, and 7 other prefectures to end on June 20th. Restrictions such as prohibiting restaurants from serving alcohol or offering karaoke services and requiring them to stop operation by 8 p.m. will stay in effect beyond May 31st. Sri Lanka has banned fishing along an 80-kilometer coastal area as the country battles to clear plastic waste coming from a burning ship. The country's fisheries minister said that the government will compensate the thousands of fishermen affected, while adding that seafood currently in the market was safe for consumption. Authorities have also deployed thousands of security personnel in hazmat to clean the beaches for plastic waste and other debris from the Singapore-registered cargo ship burning since May 20th. The fire broke out as the ship waited to enter the Colombo port. Authorities believe the fire was caused by a nitric acid leak.
On this one, the chemical is on our immediate vicinity, where it increases the chemical content as well as the alkalinity, acidity, and also the temperature of the water. It has its consequences and impacts on the altering biodiversity and disappearing of some the phytoplankton. The plastic pollutant, though it can travel a long distance, but there's no toxicity immediately from the plastic pellets. But once the fish swallow it, it does. Sometimes it would not be able to excrete it, and so that the food system clogged.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, you can also follow us for all the latest news on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. And also, you can catch up on our shows on our YouTube channel. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.